Good morning. We're in the third week of a series here at Chandler Christian Church. It's a series, as you've seen, called Hot Times. And in this series, what we're looking at is when we find ourselves in these hot times, or we find ourselves in circumstances that we wouldn't ask for or hope for, what's the direction that we can get from God? A couple of weeks, Roger talked about how we can stay strong like Daniel in circumstances, when circumstances heat up, and how God can show up in a big way if we just put our trust in Him. Last week we talked about how God will use trials as sort of a refiner's fire to purify our faith and to make us better equipped to persevere. And in both these weeks, these subjects, we saw how these hot times were actually of benefit to us, either to prove our faith or to refine our faith. And I don't know about you, but if you keep your eyes open, you'll see that the most significant growth happens in people's lives when they endure these hot times. And you ask someone, after they've gone through a significant challenge and drawn closer to God, their life's different. They look at life different. They give different. They serve different. They don't let those things that used to get in the way anymore of their relationship with God. And I think it's true of you, and it's true of me, that we often don't see the light until we feel the heat. And this week, we're going to look at something that's a little bit different, because what we've already talked about in this series is how heat can affect significant change in our lives and how we can learn from it and how we can grow from it. But this week, we're going to talk about a subject that's, quite frankly, it's unpleasant. It's a subject about how a person who finds himself in a hot circumstance, when they do feel the heat, it's too late to change. It's too late to grow. It's too late, period. It's a message for us to take to heart what's ultimately at stake in our relationship with God, and ultimately at stake in this one and only life that we're given. We're talking today about the reality of hell. And we're going to look at it through a parable, a very unique parable that Jesus tells. And I don't think there's any question that even the most seasoned, mature Christian, as well as the person this may be your first time ever in a church, in that whole spectrum, I don't think there's a question that we all struggle with this topic. We all struggle with the reality of it. We try to downplay it or we try to excuse it, but we struggle to figure this out. And I'm glad that our church is going to meet it head on. I'm glad that we're going to talk about this and we're not afraid to tackle this tough topic, much like Roger's not afraid to let me preach on it. Because the idea of hell is where someone is separated from God and all that is good forever. Because we're all going to live forever somewhere. And it's a tough one to digest. It's one that we excuse. It's one that we downplay. It's one that we avoid, quite frankly, because it's just not a good thing to think about. There's a man who, he and his wife, as many people have, they moved from the Midwest. They're moving from the Midwest to Arizona, and he came down a day early. And so he was going to email her back, on the hotel computer, because she was coming the next day, and he was just kind of saying how things were. And what happened is he typed in the wrong address. Like a lot of guys, he didn't look it up. He just typed it in and thought he knew her email address. And I do type, so you know what he's doing. And so he does the email, and he got a letter wrong in the email address. And so he sent this message to a woman, a preacher's wife, whose husband had died the day before. And when she got the message, she screamed and she fainted. Here's what he wrote. He said, "Honey, I just got checked in down here. I'm preparing for your arrival tomorrow. It sure is hot." And so, this lady struggled with that. And we laugh probably so we, don't have to cry when we think about the reality, about the pain and the heartache that comes with this tough subject. Now, I want to ask, how do we deal with it? Like I said, there's times where we just avoid it. We push it off. We downplay it. We may look for loopholes. I wish it wasn't true. I'll be honest with you. But it's not up to me to change that. And for some of you who figure, whether you're a Christian or that's what you would say about yourself, or you're still searching, and you'd say, I just I'm not sure there is a hell. I would ask you to quantify that. Would you say there's a 50% chance that there's no hell? Or a 25%? how about this? Let's say there's a 10% chance there's no hell. And then to make this real, let's say you need to go to your vacation destination. Let's say it's Hawaii, and you go to the airport, and it's an exciting thing to do, and you get there, and there's 10 airplanes lined up. And they go, which plane's mine? And they go, well, you can choose any one you want. And you're like, well, okay, maybe I can get a better seat, maybe first class. You start walking away, and they go, oh, by the way, one of these planes, we've done some research, we're short on mechanical work. We're pretty sure it's going to crash, so aloha. And so, you go on, and you're like, whoa, what are you talking about? They're going, no, one of them is very likely going to crash, and we can't tell you which one, but it's like a 10% chance. I mean, come on. I mean, that's not really much of one. I don't think there's anyone in this room who's going to get on a plane with that chance. And for us to look at this topic, or for anyone to look at the topic and say, man, I think there's a chance it's not true. You know what? 10% is too much of a chance. I'd say 1% is too much of a chance as we're wrestling with this topic here today. There are some concepts that people come up with, in this world to deal with the reality of hell. They're going to come up on the slide. One of them is called universalism. And universalism is a belief that all roads lead to God. All roads lead to God. Everyone will be saved. You'll go to heaven. As long as you're sincere, you'll be okay. Another concept is pluralism, and that's all religions contain truth, but no one religion contains all truth. And I have to say, if I'm average Joe, I like how that sounds. If I'm making it up, that's probably what I would make up, because I have a Hindu neighbor. I know someone who's never been to church. I just really like that. But there's a problem with these theories. You can't have two equally opposing ideas that are contradictory both be true. It's a nice thought. And you can be sincere, but you can be sincerely wrong. I can sincerely believe tomorrow's high is going to be 75. I could sincerely believe that someone here is going to buy me an iPad and give it to me today. And I can hope and pray. And I'll be right here if you change your mind. You can be really sincere about things, but it doesn't mean it's going to be right. G.K. Chesterton said that when people cease believing in the biblical God, the problem isn't that they believe in nothing. The problem is they believe in everything. And that's our world. We try to justify it. And when anyone comes forth and says, I think one way is true, I think one way is right, we're looked at as narrow-minded, small-minded, intolerant, or just plain wrong. But a passage that's familiar to a lot of you here, it's John 14:6. When Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes to the Father but through me. Again, that's a tough one. But Jesus draws a line in the sand. And we can struggle with that. And Jesus has said in that statement, essentially, I'm either the way or I'm no way at all. Can't include me in all of this. If you struggle with this, I just have to ask today, as you consider it, like you trust him with the rest of your life, can you trust him with this? But we'll talk about how we can go on from here. Today we're going to look at a parable again that talks about how hot times for one man can give us the perspective that can make a difference in how we see others around us. And as we head into this passage, I'm going to go in with a couple assumptions. The first one is if you're a Christian. I'm going to go at it from that perspective. Let me take a side note. If you're not a Christian, if you're just kind of checking this out, if you're searching out Christianity, or you're here because of a girl or a guy, and you're just kind of doing the church attendance thing, we're glad you're here, and we're glad you're hearing it. You're getting like an insider's view on what we even struggle with, and on a really tough topic. And this is probably a topic, if you're not a Christian, this is one of the biggest smoke screens you put out there to people who want to share Christ with you. You go, what about hell? And they go, ooh, and you just kind of, you're able to go on with your day. But if you're a Christian, I'm going to go with the assumption that you believe everyone needs Jesus like you did. I'm going to go with that assumption. I'm also going to go with the assumption is that you understand what's at stake for those who haven't made the decision, and your responsibility is to help them along to that place. Because that's what Scripture teaches. That's our call. That's the call on our life. And I'm going to assume today, as we go through this, that that's what you want. And so we'll wrestle through this passage.